The following is a special presentation of Tony Kurre Radio.
Welcome back. Welcome back to the UAB director's chair. Knowing my producer, he may just leave that snub in there. Just, to show that we're real, man. And we do a real show every single week.
I know your producer pretty well, too.
Mark Ingram is the UAB athletic director. That's why we call it the director's chair. But we will be changing it to the Inferno coming up here. Maybe starting next week or the week after. Certainly before football season, which, by the way, for the UAB Blazers starts 4 weeks from today. We're recording here on August 1st. You start on August 29th. Alcorn State down at Protective Life Stadium.
Come on.
Are you ready to go? 4 weeks ready? You all, so you're the athletic director. What are we doing right now? We just tying up loose ends. Are we done? Are we ready to go?
Oh, man, you're not done. We're just starting. We're selling tickets, man. We're getting ready for the game. We got to get all our, new signage in place. That'll be down there at the stadium. Uniforms are coming in. We got, players showing
up. I saw the new uniforms, by the way. Those look good.
Yeah, it looks good. You got to get all that stuff organized. You got gear for the student athletes as they all show up on campus because football's here and our basketball teams have been here pretty much all summer, but you still got some new people and there's still the whole act of reporting that happens. And then you have your other sports. So for fall, we have men's and women's soccer, volleyball, cross country. Those athletes are all showing up and kind of getting outfitted and getting through their sort of orientation stuff that they do and NCAA compliance paperwork that we have to do every year, physicals, that kind of stuff. So all that's live and going, man.
All right, Tim and Bessemer, info@TonyCurryRadio.net, info@TonyCurryRadio.net if you want to drop your email questions. We have a couple of them here. He mentions the fact he's a huge UAB fan, loves listening to the show every single week, and wants to know what kind of special promotions and or changes we can expect with the UAB football program this year down at Protective. Obviously, a lot of people love to go down there and see ball games. It's very affordable. You always do the Children's Harbor game. You've got something for Veterans Day. What are some of the special things? Can you tip your hat on that a little bit?
Well, you just mentioned two of them that are great, right? We always do a nice salute to service game, right, as close to Veterans Day as it can be, depending on what day of the week that is. And then we have the Children's Harbor game. We also started last year a similar event with Smile a Mile, which is another organization that helps works with families whose kids are staying at Children's Hospital, but it's more of a family kind of support group that's really magnificent. They do similar work, I would say, but not the same, but similar work to Children's Harbor. And so they started doing a game last year. And this is all really just to try to be good community partners and good citizens. And it also promotes these great organizations and the work that they're doing. And from our team, it's for our team sometimes because they live in it every day. It's easy to forget how good you've got it and what a privilege it is to play college sports. And in the modern era of NIL and collectives and all that, it's easy to forget that. And so having those two games is a great reminder to our staff and our student athletes and hopefully our fans that this is really great. Same thing with Veterans Day. And our salute to service. So we've got a lot of people that allow you and me to do this podcast, wake up safely every morning and do this podcast. And there's people over there in the Middle East or stationed around the world that are making that possible by securing our borders and keeping us safe. So it's nice to do those things for all the right reasons. In terms of change, you're going to see us move the student tailgate this year to a new location that I think is while for the general fan base, you may say, well, that's not necessarily a benefit, but I think it will be based on the location. I think it'll help create a festival feel and improved atmosphere for everybody just kind of passing by because our students have been very active and that's been good, but they've been in a location that most fans would never see them. It's convenient for the students, but it's just barely off the beaten path a little bit. So if we're going to move them into a more central spot that I think will help people realize, there's a lot of people here. There's a lot going on and this is fun. And so I'm excited about that. I'm working with the BJCC staff on that new location and again, I just think it'll be fun for all of our fans.
He did request. He wanted to see another like a teddy toss that you had at the basketball game. He wanted to see. He wanted to throw.
Fun, right?
He wants to throw something on the football field. Now you'd have to have some pretty doggone good seats in order to get something.
Good arm, man. You gotta.
Yeah, but I mean, maybe you get a couple of recruits.
Trainers to be able to get out there and work on your shoulder.
You could get some recruits out of it, dude. I mean, if you see some guy throwing from the upper deck and he's hitting the floor, I mean, it's why not? So just a couple ideas. You brought up NIL. We talk about it every single week, and it's forever changing. And we're like, as a fan, I'm like, I just don't want to hear about it anymore. I don't want to hear about lawsuits. I don't want to hear about the government. I don't want to hear about Congress. I just want to hear about college football. I just want to play college football. But I was looking, Georgia right now has 5 of the top 15 highest secondary market ticket prices. And of course, they're playing the likes of Ole Miss. Auburn is one of those games, the world's oldest game, I guess, if you will, rivalry game, if you will, between Georgia and Auburn. Then, of course, you got Georgia, Alabama, first year that Nick Saban hadn't been there in 17 years. And then Georgia, Texas, by the way, $405 it'll cost you to get into a football game.
That's just to get in, right?
Just to get in.
That's not the 50-yard line.
No. And
stadium.
And we expected, obviously, with Texas and Oklahoma, because both those teams are perennial blue bloods, and they're always pretty good. I used to remember, and I would say 10 or 15 years ago, I could take my son when he was 6 or 7 years old. I remember I took him to an Alabama-Florida game at Bryant-Denny. It cost us $75 a ticket, which, $150. It's $150, but it was worth it. I don't know at this point, even a person like myself can afford tickets. So one thing that UAB's got going for you is obviously, ticket prices are pretty reasonable. You can pretty much afford to go to as many games you want to go to. And of course, you got the new stadium down there, which is fantastic. But do you foresee a situation where it tops out? I mean, obviously, they're going to probably start asking for more money because this money's got to come for the NIL. We just heard that Ohio State paid their players $20 million. Is there a point where you see a ceiling to this price, or is it just capitalistic and it's people are just going to keep packing stadiums out no matter what the cost?
Well, I think, people want to support their team, their school, their community team as best they can until they can't. Mm-hmm. So, will it cap out? I guess the market will determine that. The fan base will determine that. Look at what it costs today to go to any game compared to when you were a kid. That's that's just normal rising cost of the world. So just like the car you drive costs more today than it did 25 years ago, that's probably not going completely away. But I do think that you've got to be sensitive to it. We are very sensitive to that. We want to be, again, good for the community and be something that people can afford to go to inexpensively. But at the same time, I have the same thing you have in your house. I have expenses that are increasing that are not my fault, mm-hmm. right? It costs more to take our team on a bus to play somewhere because of the cost of gasoline. So the bus company's got to charge me more. So I got to figure out a way to get more. And you say, well, just sell more tickets. Well, we've always been trying to sell more tickets. So So you got to figure out a way to stay balanced there, to increase when it's appropriate and by a number that's sensible. You can't just all of a sudden, we can't start charging the same as whatever the Dallas Cowboys charge and go, look, the Cowboys charge that. We're going to, that's not reasonable, but we have to pay attention to it. Our pricing is some of the lowest in our league by design. It may stay that way. It may not. We're always evaluating. And I don't say that to say, hey, there's a pending increase, but we just like any business, we've always got to evaluate our price model.
I know StubHub is just gotten hit with a lawsuit because you see StubHub and you see that you get tickets for $3 or $4, and we know that's not real. And you want people to come into your store. They always say tickets as low as $10, but there's no $10 tickets to be had. There may be one person gets a $10 ticket and everyone else is paying $110. But I do think it's unfortunate because, but thank goodness most games are on television. So, it's not like it used to be. And I don't think people understand that usually you had 1 or 2 games a year that were on television. Then you had, your pay-per-view game. And that was a game that most people didn't want to pay for anyway. And so, at least we can watch it on television, which makes it a little easier pill to swallow when you're talking about your favorite football team. Info at TonyCurryRadio.net. Ben in Southside wants to know, how is it making coaches feel that some players now are making more than they are? We were talking about that $20 million. There are actual football players now in college that are making more than their head coach. How does that rub you, and does that change the dynamics of anything? I mean, we've had that in professional sports forever, but I get that it's a professional sports. But does that change anything in college?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, those professional sports you assume are profitable. Very few of us are. So we generate revenue, but we don't generate a profit. And most departments around the country are underwater. There's probably 20, maybe not even 20 out of 134 Division I FBS programs. There's less than 20 that operate in the black, so to use an accounting term, without help from their university. So the universities will subsidize through student fees or some other, means to subsidize their department to help fund the operations. But there's less than 20 that do it without help. So just, it's just crazy. And look, I think that I love our model, that we give access to education through sport. That's been a great model for a long, long time, which clearly we've gotten away from. And I've heard other ADs and coaches talk about how they'll bring a freshman in, and somehow to get that freshman, they had to pay all this money, and their senior doesn't make as much money. The senior is the starter and making less money than the freshman who doesn't play. Yeah. And they had to pay the freshman to get the freshman, hoping that the freshman will work out. Well, I hope it works out too before the freshman decides to transfer out next year. But you can imagine what the dynamics are in a meeting room of, let's just say, 5 quarterbacks, and the freshman who doesn't play is making more money than everybody else combined because he was so highly rated coming out of high school. And I mean, I've heard stories about these arguments, near fights that have occurred in these meeting rooms. You're also talking about 18-year-old to 22-year-old kids who are not in a position yet to handle that in a mature way. And so it's really changed the locker room for a lot of places.
By the way, EA Sports has just passed the $500 million mark with their brand new college football game, which of course they haven't had since 11 years ago or something like that. And I know my kid got it, and I haven't seen him like in a week and a half. I mean, he's walking around like brain dead because he can't stop playing, and he says it's fantastic. I actually saw it, and it looks good. And he's played UAB several times, by the way. And they did a fantastic job. I know there was a lot of AI used in that, but Protective looks fantastic. I mean, everything from the buildings in the background to the players to the coaches. I mean, it gives me goosebumps. I'm not a big Madden player, EA Sports player, but it looks pretty good.
Yeah. Well, that's great to hear. My son has it as well. I know he's been playing it. I hope he hasn't been playing it too much, and he's getting some sleep. But I know he's playing it and he's loving it, and he's been looking forward to it coming out.
It's pretty cool stuff. And of course, each player who is on that game, it would be super cool if Mark Ingram or Tony Kurre have their own video game. Wouldn't it be awesome to be on your own video? These guys are making $500 a
podcast video game.
They're making $500 a pop, and they're complaining about it. I'm like, EA Sports just made $500 million.
To do nothing but let them put your name on a shirt.
Yeah, that'd be pretty awesome.
It's really cool, by the way.
It really is.
Everybody around the world can click on your team, and they can see your face and your image, and it's cool for you.
Oh, I know what I'd be giving out for Christmas. I mean, everybody in my family would be getting an EA Sports. Yeah, it'd be fantastic. It'd be great. Awesome. You've asked a question. By the way, before we move on to Classic Rock, I wanted to talk about the Inferno. We've been putting this thing together. We've been doing practices for it. Practice. Mark Ingram and Tony Kurre practicing for a podcast. Go imagine. We've been doing this thing for 2.5 years. Anyway, but it's going to be fun because Trent Dilfer and, of course, Andy Kennedy are going to be part of this new endeavor we're going to be doing. It's going to be super cool. It is going to be benefiting the NIL and Collective. So if you want to benefit and help UAB, listen to this show. And that will help us. And a special thanks to Pearl River. And of course, we have some other great endorsers and businesses that are going to be hopping on board. But talk about that a little bit. I mean, you see these guys all the time. I've interviewed both those gentlemen. We will try to have an opportunity where we'll have both in the studio at the same time. I don't know how often that's going to happen, but we'll start that in August. But it should be a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, well, I want to be clear to the listeners. It's going to be it's going to be free to the listener.
Sure.
There's no cost. There's no paywall to get to subscribe or anything like that. What we want is the more people we have, though, the more attractive it is for advertisers, and those advertisers know that they're going to be supporting our collective by helping to support the show. So the more people that listen, the more attractive it is to those marketing folks, and that's where we need your help, and where we want you to spread it around to your friends and get people to listen, because it does make a difference. And, we're to a point now where if we aren't focused on making sure that our coaches can get the best players possible, that's always been true. But through the ability, I've been limited in what I'm allowed by rule to do until recently. So now I can become more engaged in that. It's been such a challenging hands-off process for every athletic department in the country. In some places, they'll have a former player or a local business person that's got the time and desire to dedicate to it. But those are really few and far between, to be candid. And even some of the best programs in the country have struggled with it, because finding that right person is hard. And then that not just is willing, but can go find the time to do it. So we'll see this as an initiative from our department more than ever to try to help fund the collective, so that we can ensure that our coaches have the best players. Because look, if you're a season ticket holder, you want to see a good team, right? So we got to make sure that the team on the floor, on the field, et cetera, is one you are excited to watch. So anyway, these dollars, as you indicated, amongst many other programs that we're putting together to fund that, is part of it. I'm excited about it. Yeah, look, man, anytime you get Andy or Trent, and a lot of our coaches, frankly, in an interview, they are really dynamic and fun to talk to. And I think our listeners will enjoy that as well. And you had Casey Dunn on a couple of weeks ago at my place here when I was out of town, and Casey's a ton of fun. So I think that you'll see that, and I think our listeners will really enjoy, I think, seeing a more personal side of the coaches too, not just talking about it.
Absolutely. And I want people to realize that, because anyone knows me and knows I've been doing this for a long period of time, there's not a question that I'm afraid to ask. And certainly if you listen to the UAB Director's Chair, you realize that. But I want to have fun, and both these guys, they're knuckleheads. Both of them love to talk and they love to joke around. So I think we're going to have a really large time for this. It's going to be a lot of fun. So we're looking forward to it. All right, let's talk some classic rock. You had this great Aerosmith story that I want you to share again when you're up at Tennessee. But it appears Joe Perry came out yesterday and believes that some new Aerosmith music could see the light of day as early as later on in 2025 and to resume its Peace Out Farewell Tour. Evidently, there's a farewell tour they're doing right now. He said he's writing new stuff, and so is Steven Tyler. Interested in stuff like that? It's kind of like...
Yes.
Are you? I don't even know. I don't. It's like, I think the Who came out. I think Pete Townsend and Roger Daltrey came out with a new Who record like 10 years ago, 5 years. I couldn't even tell you, because I don't know if people buy those records. I know if James Taylor comes out with a new record, it goes straight to number one, and then it falls because it's James Taylor, and people are always looking for his material. But when you've been listening to a group for 50 years, I don't know what it's going to sound like.
I mean, if it's good, it's good, right? It's a matter of what it is.
Yeah, I mean, I just heard Night Ranger. They got a brand new album out, and I like it. I mean, I like it. I mean, it's weird because I mean they're still writing songs about 18-year-old girls in high school, but it's good. I mean, it still rocks. Now, do I want to hear it live in concert, or do I just want to hear the hits? Probably the hits. But so you would buy something like that. But I wanted you to share your Tennessee story because I think it's great. It'll take it to the house.
Yeah. Okay. So I didn't know you were going to ask me that. I was young in my career. I was working at the University of Tennessee. I had just finished playing maybe a year prior, and I was working in the marketing department at Tennessee, and the band Aerosmith was coming to our arena in like February or March. And so Amy, my wife, and I, we got tickets to go to the show with two other friends and another couple. And so right before the show, Steven Tyler tears his ACL up in Alaska at a concert. He like jumped off a speaker or something and tore his ACL. So they had to postpone the entire tour until he could get healthy. So the whole deal was, that was back when you had a hard ticket, and they just said, just keep your ticket. It's still good for the show whenever we come back. Well, of course, now you don't know, well, when is that going to be? And am I even going to be available? I mean, whatever. So you wait. And so they announced it's going to be in December of 1998. Well, as it so happened, in the fall of 1998, our football team was undefeated. And the BCS had just launched. And so this was going to be the very first year of the BCS National Championship. And it turns out that we, Tennessee, were going to go play in that game against Florida State. We just won the SEC title game against Mississippi State. And so now this show is about to happen. Well, I had a friend that worked, this was before Adidas or Nike would do these mega deals. They would do deals and Under Armour, like what we have here at UAB, they would do these deals, but they weren't as all-encompassing as now. So we had a local vendor that made our football shirts, our jerseys. Yeah. And so a buddy of mine from graduate school worked there. I got him to make 5 jerseys, orange Tennessee jerseys with the number 1, and the nameplate said Aerosmith on the back. And I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do exactly with this, but I'm going to figure out a way. Well, Amy worked at the radio station. It was a classic rock radio station. She worked there in radio sales, advertising, and she was able to get, and they were promoting the show. And so she was able to get these pre-show meet and greet passes, like the day of the concert. We were able, I was like, maybe I'll just throw them up on stage. I mean, like, this is pre 9/11, so I could have walked in with these things in my hand, no big deal. And anyway, so she got these passes, and so we get in there, and they had this long line outside this room underneath the arena, and they put us in groups. And I was in the last group number 9, and this gigantic, I mean, humongous guy, security guy, comes walking in, and he kind of barks at everybody. He's like, listen, the band is about to walk by you. Do not talk to them. They're going to go in the room, and they had this room decorated with all these posters. It was the 9 Lives tour when they promoted that show. And they're like, don't talk to them. They're going to come in. We're going to call you in with your group. You're going to take your picture with the band. You're going to leave. Do not ask for an autograph. Yeah. Anybody that asks for an autograph, we end this whole thing. Once everybody's gone through, you come back in as a group, and then you can get autographs. Okay. So I'm like, man, I'm the last group. Somebody's going to mess this up. Sure. There's no way. But we get in, and I get our photo taken with the band, and I'm holding up one of the shirts. Well, they didn't really, because I was in the last group, they didn't really make me leave. Now, I didn't try to talk to the band. I was walking towards the door, and I was kind of fiddling with this box. It was like a shoe box, and these other shirts, and this. Now it's kind of messing with. And Steven Tyler says, he sees me, and he goes, "Hey, man, what do you have there?" And I thought, oh boy. And I'm all of a sudden I'm nervous. I'm not usually nervous about stuff like that. He comes over to me with a marker, a Sharpie. And he said, "We got there." And I said, "Well, I work in the athletic department. Our team's number 1, and we're going to go." He's like, "Yeah, I heard something about that." I was like, he's probably making that up. That's what he said. I said, "We're about to play in the national championship." And I said, "And I had these made." And he's like, "Oh, man, that's cool." And he goes to sign it. And I said, No. I said, "I actually brought this for you." And he says, "Wait, what?" And I said, "I have 5 of them. I brought one to give to each of you." And he calls over to Joe Perry, and he says, "Joe, get over here. You're not going to believe this." And so he kind of, "Hey, man, what's up?" He kind of walks over, and he's like, "Hey, man, what's going on?" And I said, he goes, Steven Tyler is telling that story. So I told him again, and he goes, "Joe, he doesn't want anything." And Joe Perry goes, "What?" And he says, this is a gift. He's giving these to us. And so he goes, he calls his road manager over. I gave him 3. He took 3. He insisted on calling the rest of the band over. They signed 2 of them. So I have 1, and I gave 1 to my best friend, and it's just hanging up in my closet. But I've got this Aerosmith number 1 jersey. That's nice. That they all signed. And then Steven Tyler wore his during the encore of that show. And of course, Tennessee goes on to win a couple of weeks later. I think it was January the 4th. We won the national title game. And so, yeah, I've been a big fan of his since then, because he was so friendly. They all were. And engaging with people. And it tells you these athletes or celebrities, actors, musicians, if they'll just deal with their fame and just talk to people, they'll last and have a career like Steven Tyler and Aerosmith has had.
You're right. You're spot on. I've done a million meet and greets, and I've seen everyone from the biggest pain in the asses to some of the nice. And it's funny because the people you think are going to be the biggest pain in the butt are usually the nicest ones. And the ones that, you think are going to be really nice are the ones that it turned out to be just big turds. But I mean, it's you get in some, and again, a lot of people just want to have something to remember them by. I know they like to do pictures, and sometimes people do autographs. And like Bonnie Raitt, she does not sign autographs. I'm like, why? We're all sitting there. We just went to her autograph to know that you're probably going to spend another $100, $150 on that person over the course of their career, whether it's going to be another record, another concert you're going to buy tickets for, or whatever. So yeah. But I've also been a couple of shows where there's been some fans that are idiots and they ruin it for they ruin it for everybody else. Like they're just creepy. Like they just creep the band out, and the band's like, I'm going to get out of here. So I've seen that in NASCAR a lot too. Yeah. So all right, but man, thank you so much for everything you do. Next week we'll talk, and then we'll get ready for the Inferno, I guess, the week after that. But make sure you can stay listening wherever you get your favorite podcast, and of course you can find all these shows on Tony Curry Radio on the YouTube channel. It's called the Inferno. Make sure you check out. It's going to be a UAB-based show, obviously, but it's going to be super fun. We'll look forward to it. In the meantime, 4 weeks from today, baby, UAB Alcorn State down at Protective. It's almost
right.
It's almost here.
Get your tickets now.
Appreciate you, my man. I'll talk to you in a little bit.
No pleasures.
This has been a special presentation of Tony Curry Radio.